4,500 tips about Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination. Here's what both the Biden administration and Congress must do now because hashtag justice matters. And you wrote a whole piece about it. So talk to us about that because a lot I'm sure you've dealt with tip lines your whole life as a prosecutor, and the fact that this was just a garbage chute into the White House for a lifetime appointment is infuriating, isn't it?
Yeah, Stephanie, it was worse than a garbage chute into the White House. It was collecting potentially damaging information about Brett Kavanaugh and delivering it to the very people who had the incentive to bury it so they could continue to cram the Kavanaugh nomination down America's throat. And I am more convinced each day that Donald Trump also creating derogatory information.
This last administration is more mobby than probably any mob prosecutions you've done, isn't it? It is all. How many times have we heard this story, right?
Yeah, they are more mobbed up, and they are less held accountable than I think any mob I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, you write in the past 2 years, Senate Democrats have been seeking information from the FBI about the Kavanaugh investigation, Senator Whitehouse, of course, and others. But the FBI asserts that when it does background investigations for the White House, you write, as opposed to criminal investigation, it does not, quote unquote, investigate the information unless the White House requests an investigation. In short, when it conducts a background investigation for the White House, it seems the FBI is little more than a message forwarding service. What could possibly go wrong? And so one of the remedies you write is Congress needs to unearth what went wrong, figure out how to prevent it from happening again. Second, Congress should strive for access to any substantive information from the 4,500 tips solicited by the FBI to determine whether any of them screamed out for additional investigation. Again, as we've already seen with the Texas abortion law, affects generations of Americans for generations. This is a lifetime appointment. So so go ahead. Tell us more about what we.
So this is not rocket science. There are two things that can and should be done now in the aftermath of the way the FBI badly botched the Kavanaugh investigation. One, those 4,500 tips. Now think about it. The FBI solicited those tips from the public. The public provided them in good faith, believing they would be investigated and handled appropriately, and instead they were just given over to the very people who were looking to protect Kavanaugh. So two things have to be done now. One, those tips were delivered to the White House counsel's office, albeit Donald Trump's White House counsel's office. Are they still sitting now in Joe Biden's White House counsel's office? Because if they are, they need to be disclosed to the public, right? Two, and if they aren't, they were destroyed by the prior White House counsel, and the FBI still has copies of them. So one thing that should be done is Biden should now shed some daylight on those 4,500 tips. The other thing is Congress should subpoena them. There's no reason for Congress not to subpoena those tips and then assess what kind of damaging information was contained in those tips. And here's the thing, if anything in those tips contradicts Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation testimony, he's committed perjury. He's committed a 1001 violation. He should be prosecuted, convicted, impeached, and removed from the court.
Yep, absolutely. Ooh, a little thrill up my leg that I get every time with Glenn Kirschner. So let's talk about Insurrection II, Electric Boogaloo. You tweeted, as feds prepare for the pro-Trump, pro-insurrectionist D.C. rally tomorrow, we're learning more about Trump administration, quote-unquote, failures on 1-6. Scott McFarland, who you know, obviously the reporter, who you were just on with, I know, he said at 10 a.m. on January 6th, the FBI's situational report alerted that the crowd of 10,000 waiting for Trump's speech included people with body armor, ballistic helmets, radio equipment, and military-grade backpacks. You just said further proof that Trump's executive branch was well aware of the threat to the Capitol and all its inhabitants on 1-6 and set the Capitol up for failure, hashtag charge Trump. This is, I was saying, Glenn, with the 9/11 20-year, memorial, I said this would be like having a party for the hijackers several months later. I mean, this is why you keep saying justice matters, because otherwise you just enable this behavior to continue. The fact we're even seeing this tomorrow is proof of that, right?
Yeah, and the next question we're going to have to answer is, what can we, the people, do about it? And we have some things in the works that I think hopefully will begin to answer that question. But where we are right now on the eve of Insurrection 2.0, it is, I actually think tomorrow will fizzle. Steph, I was doing videos in advance of January 6th saying this is going to be bad, it's going to be dangerous, it's going to be potentially deadly. I think this one's going to fizzle. And you know what that's going to prove? If tomorrow, right up the street from me in downtown D.C., nothing materializes but a handful of white supremacist nuts, that will prove that the first insurrection was actually orchestrated and incited by Donald Trump, because this one is not Donald Trump's party. He hasn't tweeted out or otherwise put out messages. Everybody come to DC on September 18th. It will be wild, right? So this is not a Donald Trump production tomorrow. Yes, he put out a pathetic little statement yesterday trying to say, I stand with y'all, white supremacists. But I think if tomorrow fizzles, and I believe it will, it can be used as additional proof that January 6th, as a Donald Trump production, is his responsibility.
Yep. You also made an interesting analogy, because we just had the recall out here in California, which, of course, was a crushing defeat for Trump and Trumpism and et cetera. And you said, so the presumptive loser in the California recall election, Larry Elder, is already declaring the elections rigged before it's even held. How do we get here? Simple, by failing to prosecute election crimes. How about we prosecute election crimes? Because I don't know if you can speak to what's happening in Pennsylvania, but we've got to put a stop to this. I mean, first of all, it cost us $300 million out here in California, where we have an acute homelessness problem and other problems, for this ridiculous Republican recall that was crushed, by a bigger margin than Gavin Newsom was elected by in the first place. And then you have all these states taxpayers needing to pay for these ridiculous audits. So Senate Republicans in Pennsylvania voted to request identifying information of Pennsylvania's roughly 9 million registered voters as part of their investigation of Trump's loss. The legal requests are the opening salvo in what will be a long, messy fight over the investigation, which, spurred by unverified claims of voter fraud, have been repeatedly rejected by judges, election officials, even Trump's attorney general. 17 subpoenas were approved in a party line vote by Republicans, Glenn. How is this legal? That they get their name, date of birth, driver's license numbers, the last 4 digits, social security, address, date of last voting activity. They want to know if they voted in person, by mail, absentee, provisional. Unclear who will have access to this data. Can you talk to us about this?
Well, nothing is going to be viewed as off limits or illegal if we don't enforce our election laws. Thus far, we have declined to enforce our election laws. If you don't punish election cheaters, expect more election cheaters, because you're encouraging it, you're rewarding it, right? So, and the other thing, Steph, you go to the money required to pay for these recalls and audits and fraudits and all. That's money coming right out of our pockets. In California, all that money comes out of taxpayers' pockets. In Arizona, for this extended, insane cyber ninja fraud, that's coming out of the pockets of Arizonans. In Pennsylvania, they're about to launch the same thing. Why is everybody getting away with it? Because we're not enforcing our election laws. We didn't do it when Donald Trump cheated in the election, criminally so, with Michael Cohen back in 2016. He's yet to be held accountable. Georgia has not yet done it when he said on a recorded call, find me 11,780 votes and fraudulently declare me the winner. That's a crime in violation of Georgia state election laws. He hasn't been held accountable over and over and over again. So if you decline to hold election cheaters accountable for their crimes, you're going to get more of it. Now we're getting it in Pennsylvania, and we're going to get it in other states as well.
Is it the thing you always say, Glenn, that of fear of taking the Maiden legal voyage? Because as you know, as a prosecutor, as you just referred to, it doesn't get much more than you have him on tape in Georgia. What do you think is happening with all of this? And, where are you on Merrick Garland this morning?
So I think it's timidity by prosecutors. It's fear of failure. It's fear of criticism. It is fear to take the Maiden legal voyage and charge a former president who was, by all accounts, a runaway criminal while he served in office. And I really do think all of these jurisdictions are waiting and hoping that another jurisdiction is going to take the first leap. And then I still believe the dominoes will begin to fall, and you'll see multiple jurisdictions indict Donald Trump. But somebody better get off the dime, because we're losing our democracy here. Yeah.
As a former prosecutor, how much fun was it to hear Roger Stone get served with a lawsuit during a live radio interview?
It was good, and I'd like to see him get locked up and see an indictment drop on his head, and to see the Department of Justice challenge the corrupt pardon Donald Trump delivered to him.
And this, of course, was for the, the original insurrection. I mean, Glenn, I have to hope this is why they're saying people are largely going to stay away from this because, they're still being charged for the first one. Of course, they would be rightly concerned legally, right? It's showing up for this second one.
Yes, but nobody has ever accused the MAGA crowd of exercising wise discretion.
Yeah. I love this one. A judge agreed January 31st was too soon to hold a trial for 3 Oath Keepers who stormed the Capitol. They expressed concern the pace of the trial after new evidence continues to pile up faster than prosecutors and defense attorneys can keep up, and suggested early April is a new start date. I mean, so...
Yeah, but Steph, the first insurrection trial against a character named Aaron Mostovsky is scheduled for October 18th in federal court in Washington, D.C. I will be in the courtroom every day reporting, or more accurately doing legal analysis on what we see unfolding in that first trial. It's going to be really interesting to see how the prosecutors frame the case and to see how Mostovsky's defense attorney tries to defend against the multiple felony charges pending against him. So that's going to be something that I think is worth watching to signal how all of these cases are going to be handled in the future.
I want to get your take before we go on the whole General Milley controversy. I mean, this Woodward book, holy moly. I mean, it would have been nice to hear all this during the impeachment trial, correct? But Milley wasn't the only senior official worried about Trump's mental state after he lost the election. Then CIA Director Gina Haspel said, "We are on the way to a right-wing coup. The whole thing is insanity. He is acting out like a 6-year-old with a tantrum." This was right after Trump fired Defense Secretary Mark Esper. It sounds to me like Milley was well within his rights to. And that he averted what could have been really a disaster. What do you think?
Yeah, Milley was taking seriously his oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Our Constitution has had a domestic enemy for more than 4 years now. Yeah. General Milley decided he would defend our nation against that domestic enemy, Donald Trump. And I support him 1,000%.
Yep. I just saved this one for you because it's fantastic. From the Woodward book, a conversation between Trump and Lindsey Graham following the press conference where the shoe polish was rolling down Rudy's face when he was with Sidney Powell. Graham said they were just beyond bizarre, and I think it took a lot of the air out of the balloon that the challenges are so unfocused, haphazard, and conspiratorial. Trump admitted Giuliani was not acting competently, but said he couldn't find a better lawyer. He's crazy. He says crazy. I get it, but none of those sane lawyers can represent me because they've been pressured. The actual lawyers have been told they cannot represent my campaign.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I think the president misspoke. He didn't mean to say I couldn't find a better lawyer. He meant to say I couldn't find a worse lawyer.